Good morning. You see, the thing is, it's not an argument over whether or not Jesus existed. I mean, we all know he was there. If he wasn't, we wouldn't still be talking about him, you know what I mean? I think the real question is, it's just like the Torah. Like, how do you have the audacity to deny God when literally God's book is right there? And if you read the fucking thing, if you pick the motherfucker up and actually read it, it lays it all out for you. It's not in a different language. You can get it in English, and you can read it. And it shows you all the things. Like there's nothing too difficult to pick up on it. The way I've been coming to see it is either you're a part of that lineage or you're not, which is probably why people don't see it. I think you have to actually be a part of the genealogy to one degree or another in order to be able to pick up on the messages. And it's not a matter of being like the chosen ones or the God's special people. Well, yeah, no, I mean it is. God made the Jews. So there's a piece of God inside of every Jew. If there's no God in you, if you don't believe in God, if you can't see it, then it just means that you're just not one of them. Us? Derek, you weren't born Jewish. I don't know how else to explain it. And it's not like this is new. This is some shit that I've been dealing with for years. Even before my my spiritual upheaval in my life. You know, there was a point in my time. There was a point in my life where I had absolutely no spirituality whatsoever. Like I was in a. I would say atheist, but if you look at the atheistic people today, I would not want to lump myself in with them. Of course I denied God. I wouldn't bow down. I bow to no one. And I hated going to church. You know why I hated going to church? Because every time I went to a fucking church, I felt the power being sucked out of me. I was very vocal about it too. I don't like going in these places because I feel my power being drained. Because from the perspective of Jesus Christ, Jesus is God. From the Christian perspective, I have satanic powers. And I'm not afraid of them. I embrace the shit out of them. I fucking love them. Now, from the Jewish perspective, I have godlike powers. Or I'm just like everybody else. Or maybe I even got the best of both worlds. Because listen, like I said, it's not a matter of like doubting that Jesus Christ lived. Yeshua, however you want to pronounce his name. You can pronounce his name any way you want. We know who we're talking about. We're talking about the same fucking guy. Or maybe we're not, I don't know. I guess Jesus is the Christian version, Yeshua is the actual guy. Because once we get into Gnosticism, Gnostic Jesus, I love Gnostic Jesus. Gnostic Jesus is like the fucking Passion of the Christ Jesus. I don't know where all this is. Of course he had magic powers. Look at him compared to everybody else. Everyone else was a pussy. When the powers that be came to fucking deal the punishment, that motherfucker, he stood the fuck up. He's like, here, give it to me. Come on. And then after they whooped his ass, he stood back up. Give me some more. He's a little masochistic. But I get it. I don't know, if you've never been in a position where you've had to like actually stand up for your beliefs, stand up for the way that you see things, you wouldn't get it. Like I just watched The Passion of the Christ on the last new moon. It's part of my new moon ritual. Actually, atonement. And that movie's a lot more than torture porn. It's about a guy who's fucking paving the way for people in the future. Jesus Christ died for your sins. Yeah, he died for your sins, that you just sit on your ass all day and do nothing with yourself. They'd rather be fucking somebody's slave than what? Have to actually put the fucking steps in to change your life. I don't know what people are afraid of. What were you afraid of? Well, I was afraid of not paying my bills on time. I was afraid of not having the money. I was afraid of what I was going to do if I lost my job. I was afraid of my wife leaving me, not being a good father. I was afraid of having to stay married forever to my wife. I was afraid of being a father. I was afraid of making all the wrong choices. But then, I don't know, even though now it's popped in my head, like there's even a fear of making the right choices, but the right choices being the choices that I don't want to make. As in, this is not what I wanted for my life. This is not what I wanted my life to look like. I hate this. This is the worst. This can't be it. I can't believe that I did the right thing. But unfortunately for me back then, yeah, I did. It didn't seem that way. Even now, there's times I struggle with it. I look back at the past and go, oh, God, there's no way that I did the right thing there. I fucked up really bad. No, I never fucked up. I never fucked up and I never did anything wrong. I've always done everything right. It only seemed like I did something wrong. But it's only possible to see that in hindsight. After seeing how everything is played out and led up to the way that things are right now. But that also relies on a healthy dose of faith in God and a divine plan and a divine, how do you put it? It's one of those things. If you get it, you get it. The word synchronicity is coming to my mind. If you could see the synchronistic layout of your life, if you can see how your life has been synchronistically playing out over the course of your timeline to get to this point, then yeah, I think that makes it a little bit easier to appreciate the God factor. And I'm not saying that the God of Jesus' God doesn't exist. I think it's different. It's different. No, he wasn't the Jewish Messiah. He was somebody else's Messiah, though. He had a role to play. He had to have a role to play. Like it wasn't without reason. His purpose wasn't without like divine reason. And he wasn't. You can believe it. I'm talking from my perspective. How he's revealed himself to me. He's a guy. He was a chosen one. He was a vessel for something divine, or maybe even something infernal. I mean, the Jews at the time, they said that he was possessed by demons. But then again, he told the Jews that their father was Satan, which he said it first, actually. Did he? Yeah, I believe he did. I think he came at them first. You know what? I wanted to go back to our spot in the park. He believed in what he was doing. Now it gets really interesting once we get into the apocryphal gospels and some of the more deep cuts. And of course, it's from the Christian perspective, those things don't count. They're satanic in nature, but that's true. They are, because from the Christian perspective, and I could be overstepping my boundary, but this is how I understand it: is that anything that's not related to God is satanic. There's no in between. It's pretty black and white. And I'm not saying they're wrong. They're right. If I want to worship fucking Ronald McDonald and call Ronald McDonald God, to me, yeah, Ronald McDonald's God, and then all other gods and entities are Satan. Did you just compare the Christian God to Ronald McDonald? Well, yeah, in a sense. Everyone has a name for it, and it reveals itself to everyone individually in their own way. Now, it happened to be that the Jews, it's just that God revealed himself to the Jews with the same name. They knew who the fuck he was talking about. They knew who he was. Hey, I'm the God of your father and your father's father. They knew what he was talking about. Especially the patriarchs that he was speaking to directly, because when God speaks to you directly, you know, you absolutely know. You may not want to believe it. There's going to be that part of you that tries to deny it and go, nah, that didn't just fucking happen. Either this motherfucker's fucking with me, someone's fucking pulling my leg, or there's something to this. There's always going to be that part of you the fucked up part is that the part of you that doubts. That's the one who's got the most sense. Ah, shit, there might be something to this. Fuck. God damn it. Sorry, didn't even take your name in vain. But then again, God's just a title. God's a title for the master of the universe. Or at least one of. A little old me. I was talking to somebody the other day, this spiritual group, Facebook. This girl had brought up this post about asking about, or mentioning, bringing up the connection to God and how further along her journey comes, she notices that God's more there. And of course, there's people that tear that apart. You say God, and people get all jerk-offish. Which God are you talking about? The same one that you are, asshole. I don't know. It's too big of a concept for people, but that's why pearls before swine. I do it for fun because it helps me. I love throwing pearls at swines. It's literally one of my favorite activities, and the reason I love doing it so much is that it bolsters it helps me develop my trust in myself, as well as bolster my faith in all of my doings and all of the works that God presents to me. But not everyone can grasp that. Like, which God are we talking about? We're talking about the one God that all the other gods are a part of. Try to imagine that every god and goddess is a piece of a greater whole, and I think that makes a lot more sense. It makes a lot more sense in that you can't really argue it too much because I get that. There's one divine source, one divine all-father. From which all things emanate. And also consider that God is like, God is twofold. God's made up of God and God's made up of goddess. There's two of them. Like, one is the non-physical and one's the physical. Two polarities, two forces that come together to make everything move and have fun and live, to bring about life. Because one is useless without the other. One is completely inept without the other. How do you become more of a holy man? It's a great question. Poke holes in yourself. Stabbing fuck holes into your body does not make you a holy man. You're just talking about stabbing fuck holes in yourself. Yeah, it does. Because you don't have to be afraid of offending people. Because if you're gonna filter yourself by being afraid of hurting someone's feelings, are you intentionally trying to hurt someone's feelings? No. Just trying to actually make it so that my feelings stop hurting. Okay. So you're doing something for yourself. You're being true to thine own self by releasing hurt and pain that you no longer wish to feel. And for one reason or another, you feel that it's directed at maybe a specific person, maybe a specific person's, group of persons. But by getting it out, it makes you feel better. Right? Yeah, like the other day, I was doing a recording and I was talking about my family. I was saying all these hurtful things, but seemingly hurtful things at my family. When in reality, that was just me getting the hurt out of me. Of course, I recognize that if any of my family members were to watch it, they'd probably be pissed off. Maybe not. Maybe they'd be like, oh, good for him. I do the same thing. I say the same shit about him. It helps me release. There's something I was thinking about yesterday. Was I have a lot of resentment towards my mother. Not just for things that go on now, but even throughout the past. And I recognize that's not a good thing. It's so much easier for me to have resentment towards her. Why don't you talk to her about it instead of this? Well, I am. In a sense, I am. And that was part of my intention for today, coming out to record this, because I had this vision that came to me last night where I did exactly that. I did my mommy and me therapy session on here, so that I don't have to do it in the real world, because one, conflicting schedules, two, we don't see eye to eye on everything, in that it's quite possible one person's going to talk over the other person, one person's going to say something that's going to offend the other person, then one person's going to say something that they might regret. Maybe not exactly in that order, but I'm the type of person who likes to... There was a Sesame Street skit a long time ago when I was a kid. I can do it by myself. I like to do things by myself. I like the feeling of knowing that I accomplished something without having to ask for help. Because asking for help is just, it's awful. It's awful. It's something I've wanted to try to do, but and you know what it is? And I think everybody can relate to this to one degree or another. When you ask for help, that just happens to be when everybody who you would think would help you, no, I can't, sorry, man. I was actually watching this video the other day. Someone had posted this TikTok. And this gentleman, it was this lady who was watching this gentleman. It was like a reaction video. It was this guy. He was talking about how, the hell was he saying? How every animal is kind of born with its innate abilities. Giraffes are born with the ability to walk. Snakes are born with the ability to bite. And humans are born with the ability to cry for help. It seemed like it was triggering the girl that was watching the video, because she wanted to talk so bad. But you could see that she was fighting it. Because she could, it's not like she was talking to the guy. It was a reaction video. And you can tell from her reaction that she wanted to say something, she wanted to argue. But he's right. I don't want to admit it, but he's right. And at the end of the video, he goes, think about where you need help. And think about who it is that you could ask for it. And I took it that he was a homosexual. And he wasn't necessarily talking about God, although he was. Just something about I didn't get the feel that he was talking about God. I think he was just talking in general, like, yo, you need help? You know who to ask. Go ask them. What's the worst that can happen? So, I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. I'm allowed to fucking have prejudgments on people. I don't mind that. What's it called? What's that called? Prejudices? Not prejudices. Assumptions? Make presumptions, well, he sounds gay, so chances are he's not going to be talking about asking God for help. But he might be. Who knows? Maybe that's literally exactly what he's talking about. Maybe he's talking about, that's the universe. Not everyone, to say God, I feel like that's a word that we have to take back. Because it gets so what's the word I'm looking for? gets lumped into this like one thing. You say God, and people automatically imagine that you're talking about Christianity. And in a sense you are, but I mean, you're talking about everything all at once too. You're talking about Judaism, you're talking about Islam, you're talking about, I mean, even in paganry and witchcraft, like God? Which God? Be specific. Although all the gods come from a god. I mean, even in the Greeks, I mean, most people you say, oh, from Zeus. Yeah, but Zeus even is the product of a god. His father was a god, and his father was a god, whose father was a god. And we go all the way back to Nyx and Chaos. Thank you. Appreciate that. It's a matter of how you want to define it. So something that I've been doing recently is asking God for help. And not looking at it as begging. So I read this book recently, Jewish Wisdom for Business Success, and it was full of incredible insights. One of the best books I've ever read, because it showed me how to incorporate sympathetic magic with Judaism, with the Bible, which is something that I had been doing previously. Thanks to my workings with learning Gnosticism and Kabbalah and metaphysics, there's an aspect of it where I'm calling it sympathetic magic, but it's using allegory to directly relate your experiences with the wisdom, with the insights that are being presented. And in the book Jewish Wisdom for Business Success, there had been every chapter kind of related an aspect of the Torah that could be taken in consideration for business success. And not to mention how the Torah itself is one of the greatest business models. This business model is a life model. Model for religion. It's a model for life. And I couldn't help but find a way to put myself in the position of all of those figures, all of those people. Not characters, historical figures. Talking about people take a shit on the Bible. Inadvertently, they're taking a shit on Jews. That's their history, man. The average Christian, they're just a regular person. They have no idea where the fuck they came from. They might be able to trace their lineage back like a generation or two, but this is something completely different. This is the history of a people, of an entire society, who take their lineage incredibly seriously. They own it, as they should. It's really important. The work that they're doing is incredibly important. And all of these thousands of years later, what is it, 5,700 years? Roughly. I mean, they're still at it. was watching course on the Talmud yesterday, and Rabbi Friedman, what he said was he was talking about one of the Mishnahs. Remember one of the Gemaras, how Moses takes a time machine. It goes about 1,000 years into the future, and he sits in the back of a class of a Torah reading of a class that's teaching him the Torah, and he doesn't know it. He doesn't know what the fuck they're saying. He doesn't get it. I don't understand what they're saying. I mean, he understands what they're talking about, what they're saying, and that the teachers at the front of the class going, well, we were given the Torah for Moses. And he goes on to teach. Moses doesn't understand the teachings anymore. But I think the point, what the point was that I took away from it, is that it's not a matter that the guy, he doesn't understand his own teachings anymore. It's the point of, holy shit. Holy shit. They're still doing it. They're still at it. They still have it going strong. Jewish law, how it evolves over time, like that's a whole thing on its own. Between the debates of the rabbis on the Mishnah and Gemara. I know you just said this twice. That's the only words you know? Yeah, kind of. I'm still learning. Well, I've been at this for a couple weeks. Month? What's up, man? How you doing? But, how it's evolved over time is actually really impressive. Not just impressive, but especially when you look into the works yourself. Because I decided quite a number of years ago, about 5 years ago, 2018. It was the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. It was right when I started to dip my toes into the occult world, metaphysics, magic. One of the first things that had come across my path was this book called The Tarot of the Bohemians. I was really interested in astrology and tarot at the time because I wanted to understand how they worked. What was it about them that made them work? Because we can call them bullshit, and I have done that. I've said that they're bullshit and that they aren't real. But take in consideration that despite the fact that they're not real, not only is it a thriving industry, but people use these things every single day and people find value in them. So if people are finding value in them, then that means that there's value to be found. And if there's value to be found, then that means that it's worth exploring. Yeah, it's the same argument we can use for any kind of religion either. What's the proof? Well, the proof is that there's actually people who follow it. Instead of saying that they're fucking idiots and they can't think for themselves, maybe they see something that you don't. People like to say that science isn't a religion, but the way that people talk about it, well, science told me this, science says this. Science doesn't say anything. Science doesn't actually say anything. Man says things. I mean, meat organisms that call themselves human, they're the ones who say the things. I saw this news feed today about how science found a massive ancient creature in the middle of the desert. And I knew it was clickbait, but I clicked it anyway, and it was how a whale fossil was found in the Egyptian desert. Yeah, I think that's old news, I thought. But, well, one, there's no pictures, there's nothing, it's just words. That's not saying it. That's not science saying it. That's you saying it. That's you saying to me that science told you. Did science even tell you? Where the hell are you getting this from? And where are the pictures? Where's any kind of like... And I know it's about having trust and having faith. You can't have faith in science. You can have faith in a lot of things. People have faith that the earth goes around the sun. There is a lot that we just take for granted. Something I started doing in this atheist versus theist group on Facebook that I'm in. I like to explore human interactions, especially when it comes to that type of discourse. And one of the big, one of the big gotchas is, where's your evidence? Where's your empirical evidence? So I started using it against the people who say it. I can show you God. I can show you evidence of God, just like you can show me evidence that the earth goes around the sun. I'm still waiting. I've still never seen it. And every single person who says that it does, they've never seen it. So how do you really know? Because there's experiments you could do. Have you ever done any of the experiments? No. How do you know they work? Peer review, white papers, all of the things. Oh. So a group of guys get together, come up with a consensus, and tell you how that this is the way, and you just blindly follow. And mind you, that's the Jewish way as well. It's ruled by majority. Majority rules. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing either. It's both. It's both things. It's good and bad. It's good in the sense that it gives you a perspective of what could be and what might not be. But it also gives two, I don't want to say polar opposites, but in a sense you can say polar opposites, because I know that science doesn't dictate that there is no God, even though some people would argue that that is the case. Because of science, no God. But we can also argue that science is God's tool for us to better understand God. Blasphemy! Which I don't think it is. Science doesn't take God out of anything. Job of science isn't to remove God. It's to better understand the observable reality that we're in. Just like magic. I was watching Bill Nye's masterclass. It's not magic, people, it's science. Well, sorry, Bill, but it's not science, it's magic. Just because you can define it doesn't mean that it stops it loses its magical powers. Because it is in fact magic. Space magic. It's God magic. God doesn't perform magic. It does to me. Right, God? Right. This is what you're doing on Sunday? Shouldn't you be at church? This is my church, my child. This vessel is my church. This is my holy temple. And we could argue to some degree that this is the third temple. This is the Beth El. Like Ra's solar vessel. The physical body is the vessel of God. At least mine is. I can't say what is or isn't true about other people. I know I've heard other people say this. I don't know if they actually believe it. I know there's a big worldwide spiritual community of people who want to believe that they're gods. Yeah, but he who is on high is the same as he who is thrown down below. On earth as it is in heaven. Earth is the new hell. I like to see myself as the new Lucifer. Antichrist. Moshiach. Do you know I believe that I'm in the Moshiach? I believe that. Every day, there's more revealed to me that I believe it. And I don't know, like you'd have to read the Torah to understand it. It's all part of a divine cause and effect, divine butterfly effect. Because that one act was like the first domino in this greater play that's been working itself out, this greater plan. There's not so much 12th Imam. I haven't gotten to the Quran yet. Well, although I feel I could be wrong, but I believe that I read enough of the Quran that I needed to read. Because the main premise of Islam is given within the first 11 pages or so, at least of the copy that I have. And the verse is very simple, and it says, "Do not follow. Don't believe the Christians or the Jews that they're going to guide you to God. They don't care about you as soon as you if you're not following their ways, essentially. The path to God is your own to find. You define it. And then it goes on with whatever it goes on with. I mean, like I said, I haven't really read much further than that. But that's all I needed to see. And yeah, you have different schools of Islam. You got the Middle Eastern kind, you got Black Islam. We got a shit ton of Islam. And I don't think any of it's wrong. And it's all right in what it believes it's doing. But at the end of the day, the path to God is your own to find. And nobody can define it for you. Now, unfortunately for Christianity and Judaism, or in Islam, Judaism, the Torah just seems to have, just seems to be a little bit more palatable. A lot more palatable. Don't be afraid of your enemies when you go to war. No, laugh at them. But you got to be afraid of them first. You have to be afraid. You can't be afraid to be afraid. If you try to tell yourself that you're not afraid, I'm not afraid, it's because you're scared as shit. You know you're not afraid when you can fucking... And it could be forced at first. Sometimes you do have to force it. because it just doesn't come natural. Think of Harry Potter, Year 3, Defense of the Dark Arts. There's a creature that Professor Lupus was teaching the children about, and this creature, what it does, it takes on the form, it's amorphous, and it takes on the form of its victim's worst fears. It's a psychic. It has psychic abilities, and what it does is it taps into the frequency of your fear of that which terrifies you the most, and it presents itself to you as this thing, because it's drawing the fears, feeding off of your fear. But now here, and what Professor Lupus actually teaches, he's like, there's one defense against it, and that is to laugh at it. So what you have to do is you have to think of that thing that you're most afraid of and see it in a comical way, which is completely counterintuitive and almost impossible. But as the children see, it's not impossible. This is incredibly difficult. But there's another way to look at it, and I was thinking about this while I was reading that part of the book, is that this creature, this entity, it's actually doing a service. It's doing a huge service for you, because what it's doing is it's feeding off of your fear, which then decreases the degree of fear that is within you. It's actually it's a symbiotic entity, because it is bringing fear to the surface. It's bringing your fears to the surface so that it can draw that fear out of you to the point that that you're no longer afraid of that thing that you were afraid of. It's actually a beneficial creature, entity. I forget the name of them. But laughter seems to be their one weakness. And who knows, maybe laughing at it, that's not killing it per se, it's actually freeing it from its prison. What you're doing is you're releasing it from its own trauma. Because how do you defeat something that you're afraid of? You laugh at it. You show it that you're not afraid of it. Once you're no longer afraid of the thing that brings you fear, you have power over it. Or maybe not power over it, you're now on level playing ground, but to it, level playing ground is having power over it, because it wants to have power over you, because it's hurt. It's been hurt. And kind of going back to mommy issues now, like the resentment and anger and hatred that I feel towards my mother. What's hatred? Hatred comes from fear. We fear what we hate. We hate what we fear. That's the way that I know it. I don't know if that saying's like universal, but it makes a lot of sense. We hate what we fear. So I hate my mother. That means I'm afraid of my mother. Why am I afraid of my mother? Because she's scary. She scares me. Like my ex-wife and my sister. She's honest. She says the things that are on her mind. She doesn't really put too much thought as to whether or not it's going to hurt somebody, but she just says the things. And by saying the things, it does hurt, but that hurt is the medicine. So I'm grateful for that. I'm actually grateful for my mother and her honesty. I don't like it, but I love it. I love that it's difficult to face those truths. I love that I have to face those parts of myself and let them come to the surface and present them out into the open, like so. This is that. This is shadow work. This is divine dark work. Of course it's divine. I was led down this path. I was going back to what I was saying about the Old Testament is like, if you read the Old Testament and see how things played out, again, the reason you may not resonate with certain things, you may not resonate with God, you may not resonate with Christ, you may not resonate with books of Moses may not resonate with Islam. But that's because you're not part of the team. You're not part of that tribe. Don't forget, there was 12 tribes of Israel. Israel is the center point of the world. And there's 12 tribes that came from it. Ten of them are missing. Where'd they go? They got displaced. They got displaced when Nebuchadnezzar, believe, right? Am I saying that right? Nebuchadnezzar, when he conquered Israel, and the Jews were exiled, he destroyed the first temple. But that's also presupposing that every person on earth is a descendant of Adam and Eve. They might be, they might not. The Jews, the tribes of Israel, are all descendants. Are you a tribe, or do you come from a tribe of Israel? If not, then no. Where did you come from? Caveman, cavewoman? Where did they come from? Monkeys? Simians? Okay. So you're an animal. You descend from animals. Doesn't make you a bad person. I mean, it's what it is. It's not the same for everyone. That's a I think that's kind of a misconception. There's just one race, the human race. That's not true. That's totally not true. Because they're broken down into more. I saw that the other day. It's just kind of this need to be all-inclusive. I don't think you need to be. I think you're allowed to have prejudices. You need them. Well, you need them so that you can see more of yourself. I mean, let's take my mom, for instance. Just admitted on here that there's a part of me that can't stand her, that's mad at her, that resents her, that hates her. But at the same time, all those pieces, at the end of the day, they're afraid of her. Remember the first time I stood up to her. Or at least the last time. Maybe it was the first time. Because I don't feel I've needed to do it again after that. And ever since then, I've learned to channel that fear into something else. Take that fear and not hide from it, not pretend it's not there, but actually embrace it. Let it express itself. Usually in my words, when I write, or even when I speak, like this. Fuck you, I hate you! Rage? A rage ritual? Oh, God. I was just thinking that. Using rage to heal that. It's not impossible. It's not comfortable either. It's not impossible. It's not hard. wish I had more privacy to do it, though. Is it? Whew. That. And it works like magic. That's exhausting. That's rage. So, I don't know if you actually noticed or felt what I was doing, but I was letting a lot of stuff just coming up to the surface, and I wasn't really focused on anything in particular. I know I used my mom as kind of a focal point, but even while I was in that place, man, I don't know, did you see my handshake? I felt it, like, the point is that by allowing that energy to come up, how do you put this? Because I feel like this is going to get into some shit that's going to go over heads, because you're not going to grasp it. Take the names and the faces off of things. Forget about the who did what to who. There's no blame in this. This is just energy being released. That was me releasing energy. That was a pocket of energy that had been stagnating inside of me for probably decades. And I'm not saying that was the entirety of it, but over the course of the past several years, I've been releasing it more and more and more. It just happens to be that right now I think I'm getting close to the core of it, because my life, the way that my life is going, that there is a lot of external happenings that are leading me down this path that's telling me that something is about to change drastically in my life. And it's not the first time that I've had a premonition like this. It happens quite often, but what I've come to realize is that when that message, it's not arbitrary. It's not just me getting my hopes up. It's kind of like a 2-minute warning. Hey, just letting you know, things are changing soon. You're doing a really good job. And there's going to come a point where you're looking back on this moment, reflecting back on this moment, and realize why everything had to happen exactly the way that it did between now and then. It's just like, take for instance, creation of Adam and Eve, Joseph bringing the Jews to Egypt, and the building of the first temple. And now fill in the blanks of everything that happened in between those. Why everything that happened had to happen exactly the way that it happened in order for all those events to happen. Yeah, there's that cause and effect. Because Adam and Eve were created, a man named Joseph was born who would be put into a position where he could free his people and bring them into what could essentially be perceived as a promised land. A promised land, not the promised land, but a promised land. But because he did that, his people were enslaved and would eventually need to be freed so that they could find the promised land by another man named Joseph, a descendant of Adam and Eve. So what we're looking at in the Old Testament isn't just magical, supernatural things happening. We're watching the evolution of a bloodline, a very specific bloodline. A very specific family. Probably the most important family line of all the family lines. We could say that. A very important lineage. We consider the fact, I mean, not many people, people will argue, but we can find people who won't argue the fact that everything happens for a reason. There's no accidents. When you look at the story from Adam and Eve to Joseph, I've been loving using the Old Testament lately, the Torah. It's like the fucking best. But when you look at how everything fucking played out, from one kid to the next, the cause and effect of it, and then the one thing couldn't have happened without the other. One domino had to fall into the next for the next one to fall. The first domino had to be tipped in order for the last domino to fall. Get it? Or even we can argue that the last domino has to fall for the first one to be tipped. That without the last one, the first one's pointless. And I don't think that there wasn't already some people around. I think godless people. May not have essentially even been the beginning of everything. Like even as much as one rabbi, he was saying in the beginning, very misleading translation. We don't know what came from the beginning. All we know is this was the beginning of us. This is the beginning of our timeline. And people like to fight. Oh, the Bible says the world's only 6,000 years old. Nah, well, what it's saying is this particular timeline, this chunk of history is 6,000 years old. So say thank you for keeping track of things for as long as you have, because apparently nobody else has been. But even still, there's other things to learn in it, just divine butterfly effect. There's a regular theme in Genesis of good things coming out of bad things, bad situations. Constantly. Someone's getting fucked over, people getting thrown into slavery, backstabbing, theft, betrayal. But that's what it looks like on the surface. It looks that way on the surface, but once you zoom out to see how the whole drama plays out, we couldn't have even gotten to the point that we're at if not for all the things that happened before it, everything that led up to it. Kind of like I think it's Revelation. These things too have to pass. These things must pass. Like the omelet can't be made without breaking eggs. We can't break the eggs if they're not hatched, if they're not born, if they're not laid. And they can't be laid if we have no chicken. And they can't be gathered if there's nobody there to gather them. And there wouldn't be anybody if there wasn't first two somebodies that would eventually branch out into those somebodies. Now there's a thing with Christianity that blames Satan for the fall of man. They kicked out of paradise. But it was all part of the plan. It had to happen that way. There wouldn't be anything if not for that something. That something had to happen. So it wasn't evil. Even if, we look at Old Testament, right? Joseph's brothers, his 11 brothers, they conspired against him and sold him into slavery. They beat the shit out of him, then sold him into slavery because he had the sight. He had foresight. And he saw that one day they were going to bow down to him. And they were tired of it. They were jealous of his power. So what they did, they beat the shit out of him. And then they sold him to fucking Egyptian slaves. And he spent about 10 years in prison. Was it 10 years? I don't know. I don't know how long it was. He was there for a while. He served as a slave. And somebody's fucking in my spot. Son of a bitch. He served as a slave. Then his slave master's wife tried seducing him. He said no. And she accused him of trying to rape her. And he was thrown in prison, where he met two gentlemen who had strange dreams, so he interpreted them for them. One man, his dream was saying that he was going to be killed. The other man, his dream said that he was going to be returned back to his job as a cupbearer for the Pharaoh. Man, Joseph asked him to help him. He's like, listen, just if when you get out, don't see what you can do for me. I gotta get out of here. Like I really don't belong here. And the guy forgot. Until one day, Pharaoh had a dream that he needed interpreting that even his magicians couldn't do. And so the cupbearer's like, I know just a guy. I know exactly who you need. This guy named Joseph. And then that meeting led to Joseph being put in charge of all of Egypt, became the chief operations officer for the entire land. And when the famine he had predicted came, and his brothers made their way to Egypt for some some kind of help, some assistance. They didn't realize it, but they came to Joseph and they bowed down to him. And he helped them, and eventually over the course of time, he revealed himself to them. And they eventually they apologized. They begged for forgiveness. And he saw it. Like, he knew better. Don't worry about it. I forgive you. You're already forgiven. Because if you didn't do exactly what you did, we wouldn't be in this situation. He literally saved the entire nation. Pharaoh's dream. And Joseph didn't interpret anything. He'll tell you that. It was God. God just told him what to say. Just God told him what it meant. And he was just the messenger. He was the vessel. He was the chosen vessel of the time. That's why God made sure that Joseph had everything that he needed. The only person that was above Joseph besides God, the only person in between Joseph and God was Pharaoh. But even still, Pharaoh was just the king of the land. And he respected Joseph enough that he just let him do whatever the fuck he wanted. Because he trusted him. Hey, you know what? You're the only person with the balls to talk about this stuff? Fine, you do it. And he did. He came up with a plan, and the plan saved the day. And because of the plan that he made, his brothers had a place to go to seek help, to seek assistance. And like you said, I couldn't have done this if not for what you did. Yeah, it's like some divine fuckery. Of course it is. Like, did we really have to throw me in fucking jail? But if he didn't, or did we really have to fucking sell me into slavery? But if he didn't get sold into slavery, he wouldn't have been thrown in jail. If he didn't go to jail, he wouldn't have met the guys. And if he didn't meet the guys, then he would never have met Pharaoh. If he never met Pharaoh, he wouldn't have been put in charge. If he wasn't put in charge, Egypt would have been fucked during the famine. But God needed Egypt because Egypt was, unbeknownst to Egypt, going to be the breeding grounds for the Jews. Because after Joseph dies and the new Pharaoh takes over, who doesn't know Joseph, and he decides to enslave the Jews because he hates them. There's so many of them. Fucking cockroach. So much so that he decrees that the males all need to be killed. Firstborn male, I don't know if it was firstborn males or just the males in general, babies, need to be killed. But from Joseph's brothers or one of his nephews? One of his nephews. They have Moses. They put Moses in a basket and send him down the river. And eventually he's found by the Pharaoh's sister, who raises him. One day he sees an Egyptian beating a Jew. I don't know if it was a pogrom, or just that the relations between Egyptians and Jews were that bad that the Egyptians would openly just fight with the Jews. And it doesn't say who started it. I'm going to assume that it was started from Pharaoh, because he hated the Jews so much. He was afraid of them. One of his fears was that if anyone decided to go to war with Egypt, that the Jews might turn on him. And because their numbers were so vast, that would pose a problem. That was one of his excuses. It's not that he was wrong. And realistically, he was right. He was absolutely right. He pulled an Odin, as a matter of fact. By trying to prevent something, he was, in fact, becoming the catalyst for that event that he was trying to prevent. Where Odin was trying to prevent Ragnarok from taking place, he actually set the pieces up for it to happen perfectly. Exactly how it needed to happen. Him preventing it was actually the opposite, had the opposite effect, basically. Now, Pharaoh didn't realize it, but it was actually the god of the Jews that was going to go to war with Pharaoh. Because he basically saw himself as God. And he had his magicians who had their powers, and they had powers that were kind of equal to... His magicians could perform the same magic that was equivalent to the miracles that Moses was presenting. But the difference between Moses and the magicians was that Moses was attributing these miracles to God, where magicians, they're the source of it. It's basically light side versus dark side. Age-old battle. Where the light side, the light will kind of like the light teaches us that we are a part of it. It is a part of us. Where the darkness will teach you that you are separate. You are a part. Not a part of, but separate from the greater whole. Meanwhile, but that's an illusion. That's kind of the illusion. Because it's there. It's a test. It's basically a test. Are you going to declare yourself God, or are you going to declare the fact that God helped you? There's actually a middle ground. There is a middle ground. There's a polarity, there's this black and white polarity, that one either is of God, a servant of God, or separate from God, and that there is no God. And that's kind of the debate between Moses and Pharaoh, was that all of the miracles that Moses was presenting to Pharaoh in exchange for freeing the Jews, because he wasn't letting them take their days off. He believed that he was intentionally punishing them by forcing them into forced labor, basically. Because of who you are, this is what you have to go through this. It's such a heavy burden. But he thought he was better. He thought he was above. And that was one of Moses's biggest concerns at first, because when God first went to him and told him, like, your people need you. You got to go back. Because when he saw the Egyptian beating the shit out of the Jew, he killed the Egyptian. He killed the guy, and then he buried him in the desert. But people saw. He didn't know people saw it, because it was maybe the next day or shortly thereafter. He saw two Jews fighting. He's like, "What are you guys doing? What the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be brothers. Who the hell made you king of the Jews? Aren't you the guy that killed the other guy?" And that's when he realized, oh fuck, they know. I gotta get the fuck out of here. So Moses, he hightailed it, and eventually found some shepherdesses, hitched up with them, And then that's when God eventually came to him and was like, yo, people need you. You gotta go back. You gotta go back. Fuck. Does that mean I gotta go back to Hugo Boss? Hey man, I'll do it. I'm not afraid. I'm afraid. I'm totally afraid. But I love fear. I get off on fear. Yeah, that's the storyline I hear in my head. Kieran is about to step down or be asked to resign. They're gonna ask me to fill in the spot. Hi, Mr. Know-It-All. You wanted to get all the cancer out. You just clipped the cancer. Good for you. Hey, listen, I told him, if it was up to me, I'd shut the entire Northeast down. This way the cancer can come to the surface, and then we can clip that fucker out. Clip all of it out. And believe you me, everything that I have done since then has been part of the greater whole, the greater play, the greater course of events that needed to take place in order for that to happen. There's a reason why I keep calling you specifically out. Why is that? You and I, we've never met. We've only talked on the phone that one time. But from that conversation, you proved to me that you were pretty much exactly who I thought you were going to be. And then once you fired me, or once you gave the okay to fire me, a couple days later, after you used me up, right? We got everything we needed out of him. He was an employee. What should have happened is you should have found a different position for me. Because I was an employee, but technically you terminated me. Instead of I spoke up and then I got canned the next day. Right? That's literally what happened. Because of a technicality, I was put into the system. As you know what, wrongful, no, I mean, I guess, I get it, it's at will. They can fire you at any moment, but no one ever told me that they were firing me. But they also didn't want me to know that I was an employee. So they were completely breaking protocols. And I believe that's why I haven't heard back from anybody, because there's an investigation going on. And when the investigation gets wrapped up, people are gonna go, what the hell's going on here? Because I made such a fucking HR nightmare that, I don't know, I might have gotten an HR person fired. I may have been the catalyst for an HR person either getting fired or resigning. All I know is they got a labor lawyer involved. And if you ask me, my last conversation with the lawyer, I said all of the magical words that when he goes back to whoever hired him, I would imagine that more than one person is probably going to get a talking to from the higher ups. And that's basically, and we can say the same thing with Moses. After God told Moses, like, you got to go back, your people need you. What did Moses do? Moses was like, you got the wrong guy, man. Like, I can't do that shit. What do you want me to stand for fucking Pharaoh? What are you, out of your mind? I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have the words. I don't have what it takes to be that person. You stand up to the fucking king. What are you, out of your mind? Yeah, it's gotta be somebody else you can get. No, it shall be you. And with some coercion, God taught, I'm just semantics. God taught Moses a really cool magic trick. How to fucking turn his staff into a snake. How to turn it back again. It's not a fucking magic trick, how dare you, blasphemer! God is the source of all magic. How about that? And miracles. Miracle. You say miracle, I say magic. It's the same thing. Magic takes God out of the miracle. Says you. I think God makes the miracle more magical. Or makes the magic more miraculous. Because here's something that the magicians, no magicians I've ever met or talked to has ever like really acknowledged is that divine relationship between magic and the greater will. Because yeah, the magic is within. The magic and the power. Power is magic. Magic is power. But so is God. God is power. God is magic. And when both are aligned, you're fucking unstoppable. Look at Moses. Yeah, he had to go to fucking Pharaoh like 10 times before the point was finally taken. Enough's enough. How many fucking times do we gotta fucking keep this going? Obviously it took you. You had to lose your son. Not just you, but everybody, including the cattle. Was it worth it? Was it worth giving up your firstborns just so these people can get some time off, some required time off? And not to mention the fact, like, hey, fuck you. Now you gotta do all the work by yourself, jerk off. There you go. How about that now? Now everybody just walked off the job. Judaism is the first union. How do you like that? Unfair. Moses was the first union representative. That's funny you say that. Why? Because that's what me and Willie were talking about in Merrimack. And I said to him, "You guys need a fucking union." I'm a representative of the proletarian. I'm a communist. I mean, not full, like, I'm not a card-carrying communist, and I've only read the Communist Manifesto. I don't know what other communists out there believe. I don't really care what they believe. But, commie Jew witch, I remember when I wrote that. That's not wrong. I'm a commie Jew witch. Just based on the Communist Manifesto, which I know is very limited in its breadth of what it's talking about. But there, from a certain perspective, from the working class perspective, there are two types of people. You have the working class and you have corporate. That's it. This is a labor thing. The proletariat are the working class that get taken advantage of by the bourgeoisie. If you work in any kind of field where there is corporate and labor employees, hourly versus salary employees, yeah, that's exactly what happens. Have you ever worked a working class job? Have you ever worked in retail? Have you ever worked for Hugo Boss? Retail? You ever work in a Hugo Boss outlet? Holy shit, that's like a slave camp. It's like a slave camp. You have the manager who, like, literally sometimes will make you feel like their bitch, like their slave. They'll tell you when you can and cannot take off. They'll tell you when you have to work, how you have to work, and if you don't perform in such a way that they continue getting their bonuses, then they have to have a talking with you. Because you're not the one getting the bonus. They are. And if you can't do your job, if you can't maintain that I continue getting my bonus, then we got a problem. You don't have to say that you'll come and cover for somebody, but if you don't, then who is? Sometimes there's not enough people in a store. I love this story. I had to work 21 days straight. 1 day off. 1 day off in 21 days. 3 weeks. 3 full weeks. Sunday to Sunday. I had 1 Sunday off. I actually took a 4-hour train ride home to find out that the manager of the store quit, and I volunteered myself to go back the next day because I knew they wouldn't find anybody else. I allowed it to happen. Of course I did. Company man. I wanted to see the company succeed. I wanted to see the store succeed. Why? Because I am a business owner who believes in his work. And I believed that I could make it happen. I believed that I could be the one I relied on to make sure that that store was also a shareholder as well. So I felt it was incumbent upon me to make sure that my store was operating at full capacity, or that I was going to hold it up until it could. And I did. I was there for 4.5 months. I was only supposed to be there for two to 3 weeks. I was there for 4.5 months. I fucking killed it. But eventually, I got tired of games and being put into situations that weren't healthy. So I stood up. I got fired. Nobody ever told me I got fired. I tried to pretend like it was just a standard operating procedure, but no, I did get fired because I stood up. Or just coincidence. You know, I don't believe in coincidences. It just happens to be that the day after I said something was the day before all my credentials stopped working. And for the past 3 months, I have been fighting tooth and nail to get money that's been owed to me. And it's not been an easy journey. I have to go to them at least once a week. No, at most once a week. I think sometimes I might wait a week and a half. And I make sure I get as many important people as possible. HR manager, VP of sales for the Northeast, the president, the third-party lawyer, the compliance department, regional manager, anybody who I believe needs to be involved. Because I believe that I am a victim of corporate corruption. From one perspective, just like the Jews. I've also received religious persecution as well. I was told that I couldn't observe certain Sabbaths. I can't work with that. So I can't let you do that. I was told to remove religious items from my person, like a ring, for instance. I had a ring that had religious value to me. I was told to remove it. Twice. I was told to lie if I wanted to keep my job. You better start lying if you want to keep your job. Sexually harassed? Oh my God. They make me think dirty thoughts. What? You got very moist hands. Yeah, but they work magic. What? I'm sorry, sit, what? If you get it, you get it. Oh, I get it. If you would have got me fired, I would have come to your house. What? Why? to talk to my mom. It's coming from somebody walking around the store talking about killing people. All right. I wish I can give you a day off. Excuse me? Yeah, but you're getting your weekends off. You don't even pick up the phone on Saturday or Sunday. You leave me hanging because you're not working. Because your salary. I'm the one who's got to deal with all the shit. I'm not even the fucking manager. I got to do all the manager stuff. Why aren't you paying me like a manager? But these are those things. Hey, it's a good thing that you said all that. It's a good thing that you told me I couldn't do this. It's a good thing that I forgive you. Don't worry about it. Because if you didn't do those things, if those things didn't happen, we wouldn't be exactly where we're at right now. And I know it might seem bad for you, but listen. If it wasn't good, it wouldn't be happening. Here's something that Miss Kim inspired in me. My best days are disguised as my worst days. Repeat after me. My best days are disguised as my worst days. One more time. My best days are disguised as my worst days. I God sent some non-believers. My best days are disguised as my worst days. My best days are disguised as my worst days. Today's going to be the most magical day ever. It's already proven itself to be. You know, I haven't had money in close to 50 days. I haven't spent money in almost 50 days. My family is so sick of me. My mother's husband, my stepfather, he just has this look of disgust in his eyes every time he looks at me. My mother, just the other day, you've had 5 years. Come on. It'll be good for you to get out of here, and it'll be good for me and him. They want me gone. Why don't I have any money? Because I don't have a job. I don't have a job, just under broke. I have a career. I have a business. I work for myself. But I don't have a job like other people do. This is my job. Writing is my job. Reading is my job. Learning, thinking, connecting with the divine, carrying out his will, carrying out the will, the greater will. Everything I do, I walk the golden path of my soul with a smile. Because I know that my worst days are my best days in disguise. And that makes me so fucking happy. It's kind of like after the tabernacle was built, people started to notice that when Moses was coming out from the tent of gathering, after he was communing with God, his skin was glowing. Literally glowing. Everybody noticed it. It got to a point where he had to put on a mask in front of other people, cover his face. You can interpret that however you want. This is what it tells. This is how I see it. This is how I see it in my mind. Moses was walking around with a shit-eating grin on his face all day, every day, because he knew what was going on. But people don't like smiles. What the fuck's this asshole happy about? Why is he smiling all the time? What's he know that I don't? No, you know it too. It's just that you can't. You're not there. You're not there yet. Because if you were there, then you'd be the one going into the tent of gathering. It's a little bit of jealousy. It's a little bit of anger. But also that requires trust. Trust to go, okay, I'm gonna trust this motherfucker. Yo, this is the only nigga that's smiling. I don't know what the fuck he's smiling about, but he definitely got something up his sleeve. I'm gonna see what he's got to say. Because that light, that newfound light in Moses, because this had been a long ass trip. This guy was going through something probably, I'm not saying that it wasn't stressful for everybody, but I try to imagine what that was like for Moses. Especially when he didn't believe in himself in the first place. And he had to stand up. He had to fucking stand up and literally make a fool out of himself to the boss. But every fucking time that he would go, he would show this guy something. And eventually, and I think what was happening was, I think Moses' priests, Pharaoh's priests and magicians, they were telling him, he's just using magic. This is all just magic. There's no God. We are the gods. Because Pharaoh would, he would say, okay, uncle. Go, you guys can go. And then once the next plague would stop, fuck that shit, you ain't going nowhere. What? But God also told Moses that this would happen. He said to him, I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart, which is a good thing. And he said, this is a good thing because it's going to allow us to continue this work. And so it did. Every time Moses would get it, or Pharaoh would get his ass handed to him, he'd back down. And then once Moses cleared the path, cleared everything up, Pharaoh would start his shit talking again. I've done that when I was a kid. I lived in these apartments, and there was like a swinging door for the building that we lived in. I remember there was these two older kids, and I would open the door. I would just let it swing shut because it was locked from the outside. So I would open it and then give them the finger, and then they would come running at me, and I would just let the door shut to see if they can get me before the door shut. And it worked a couple times, but they did eventually get me. Beat the shit out of him. Learned his lesson. Didn't do that again. I went to my father. What do you want me to do about it? I don't know. I never thought of that. Comfort me, maybe? Yell at me? Ask me what you want me to do? What I want you to do about it? I don't know. Exactly what you just did. Because if not for you saying that, I wouldn't have realized I'm on my own. And if not for mommy being exactly who she was, I wouldn't have realized I'm on my own. I gotta do things on my own. I have to do them by myself. And yeah, mind you, I got a little nest egg. I got a little safety net. The safety net's gotta go. I'm the type of person that I eventually get too antsy. I gotta keep moving. I'm starting to realize how one thing has to go for another to come into place. Yeah, maybe it's not about waiting to have a place to live to leave. Maybe it's just leaving. But I had that excuse. I'll wait till I have money to go. Yeah, if you're gonna wait till you have enough money to leave, then you're never gonna leave. Yeah, touche. Oh, realistically, I just go there to sleep and put stuff. It's like a storage area. That's literally what it is. It's a storage area. I don't live there. I have mail that goes there. I just stay there until my new place is ready. It's a storage den for my stuff. My tabernacles. Aw, my room is my tent of gathering. Oh God. Now I'm just kind of weak. It's been an exciting couple days. I went to this backyard witch festival the other day, which was really fun. Sunday. Yesterday I spent most of the day in bed. I was trying to appreciate Sabbath. Do no work. I treat it like any other day. When do you take a day off? No days off. No days off until God tells me to. I mean, plus it depends on who you ask. Some people say I've been off for 3 months. I would argue and say that I haven't been off in 5 years. Every day is something. But this is the way. I mean, you have to get to that point. You have to get to, you have to build it. Like everything that we do now is the foundation for everything that we haven't done yet. Everything that we're going to do. Like, again, the creation of Adam and Eve set the stage for Joseph to lead, to bring the Jews to Egypt. It set the stage for Moses to free the Jews from Egypt.